How's it going, friends? In this video, I'm going to break down my wedding photography gear kit, everything from my digital cameras to my film cameras and some accessories, so let's jump into it. Before I get started, I do just want to make a little disclaimer that this is years of putting together cameras and gear and things that really work for me and that inspire me to shoot. The goal of this video is not to say that you need to have these things to be able to shoot a wedding. Really, all you need is just any camera to get started. Some of my first weddings I actually shot on this camera, my second camera, which is the A6400 from Sony, which is a crop sensor camera. I think it came out in like 2014. And when I restarted my business and started shooting weddings again in 2021, that was the camera that I got and that I was using. And then later I ended up upgrading to the Sony A7 IV, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But my biggest point that I'm trying to make here is that people say online, you hear it all the time, like gear doesn't matter. And it does if it's a tool that's helping you achieve a certain look or a certain outcome, right? That being said, not having this particular gear doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and try. Honestly, I think limitations give you more creative freedom to be able to create really cool things that put you in situations where you have to think outside the box. So what I recommend doing is watching this video and finding inspiration and creative insights from it. This isn't sort of like a guide that you need to get all of these things to be able to achieve your dream outcomes. Now, with that being said, the first camera that I want to talk about right now is the Sony A7 IV. I ended up picking up this camera for both photo and video. So I'm a hybrid shooter. And so when I was looking for a camera to shoot weddings with, I really wanted to get something that was going to be a perfect hybrid blend of having a lot of photo capabilities, but also being really good on video. So when the Sony A7 IV came out, I ended up picking up two of them. And now I'm shooting on my main angle right here on one of the A7 IVs. And then my other A7 IV is right here. And then, like I said, right here, I have my Sony A6400, which also acts as my backup camera on wedding days. So I always take that with me just in case I want to use it. But the reason I ended up getting the Sony A7 IV is because for photo, it's perfect. It's got a 33 megapixel sensor in it, so it makes it super easy to crop in on some photos if you want. But it also has some of the best just technical specs in the game when it comes to autofocus and all of that other good stuff. This is not going to be like a technical breakdown of any of this gear. I'm just kind of showing you what the gear is and why I'm using it. If you do have any questions on any technical aspects, feel free to comment them on the video or message me, and I'd be more than happy to help answer any of those for you. On the Sony A7 IV, I also have the Sigma 24-70 lens. So the reason I got this right out of the gate is because this is a perfect hybrid lens, again, to be on a hybrid camera. It's perfect for photo and it's perfect for video. On photo, it does stop down to 2.8, so it's not the fastest lens out there. But honestly, I think that shooting at really low apertures like f1.2, f1.4, even 1.8, can be a little overrated. I think that you can miss a lot of shots, especially on a wedding day. And when I think about a lot of my favorite street photographers, which weddings and street photography actually have a lot of overlap, a lot of your favorite street photographers out there are shooting at 5.6, 8, even 11. So I think that having really low apertures, yes, it can be really beautiful for portraiture, but I think that having a more well-rounded lens, not having to change lenses out all the time, is going to be something that's going to get you better images because you're going to be more in the moment. You're not going to be thinking about oh, do I want to have the 35 on? Do I want to have the 85 on right now? I think that having a zoom lens like a 24-70 f2.8 is a perfect all-around walk-around lens that you could, if you wanted, shoot an entire wedding day on, which is really cool. So love this pairing with the 24-70 and the Sony A7 IV. Now on here, I also have, I'm getting kind of a little bit into accessories, but since it's on the camera, I'll show you right now. I have right on the front here a Cine Bloom diffusion filter. This is the 5%. I have used the 20% and the 10% Cine Bloom diffusion filter before, and I just think it's a little heavy of a look. I wanted it to bloom the highlights, but I didn't want it to end up changing the contrast of the overall image. And I think that with diffusion filters, that's one of the biggest issues that people are discovering, is that it can be kind of distracting and it can take away from the quality of the image. And I know that we use diffusion filters to take away from the quality, to make it the image a little less clinical, a little less sharp. but honestly, I think less is more. So I really like the 5% Cine Bloom diffusion filter for Moment. Otherwise, I think that I might be looking into Glimmer Glass, or there's another one from Tiffin that I can't quite remember the name of right now, but I'll put it on the screen so you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, having a diffusion filter, I think just gives your images a really dreamy, beautiful look, but less is more. I also have the Peak Design anchors on here. So these are perfect for attaching to camera straps. I have a few different ones I'll go over here super quick. I have this longer one. This is adjustable from Clever Supply Co. And I ended up getting annoyed that this kept slipping off and then this extra part was just like kind of flapping. So I ended up taping it to the exact spot that I like it. And then I just put the little catch right over it like that. But yeah, so I really like the lever straps. This is, like I said, from Clever Supply Co. Todd makes these down in Kentucky, I believe, and he just is crushing it. A lot of the stuff on the table here is from Peak Design, such as my harness, which I'll talk about later, this bag, and this short strap, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But basically what makes it super nice is you can just put all of these little anchors on all of your cameras, and then you can just snap them on just like this, and then be able to take it off super easy. The harness also has the anchors in it as well, so you can just line that up and connect it to your harness and be able to just throw it down by your side. And it works really great if you're looking for a 2-camera setup. Speaking of, we'll get to my second camera that I actually just got this year and has slowly been taking over more of the images that I've been taking, which is really exciting. The second camera that I normally have on my camera strap with me throughout the day is the Fujifilm GFX 50S Mark I. I know there's a Mark II out right now. This is one of the older cameras in the GFX line. I think this was one of their first ones, if not the first one. I'm not 100% sure on that. So this is a few years old. I think this came out in 2016. So it's really slow, it's really clunky. It's almost like shooting a film camera because of how slow the process is. Like, I'll show you, I'm gonna take a photo right now. Like that's about the refresh, if you didn't hear that. So it's really, really slow. But the reason that I wanted to pick this up was because I wanted to have another camera to use that inspired creativity. I really like the aspect ratio of this sensor. I think it's close to like a 3:4 aspect ratio, as opposed to 2:3, which is in full frame cameras, which is like a film negative strip. So this is more closer to what I ended up printing, what I end up posting, you know, when it comes to the 4:5 aspect ratio, or like an 8:10 that you want to print and put on a wall. I just find myself doing a lot less cropping and in different aspect ratios in post when I'm using this camera. Another reason that I like this camera is because if you do want to crop, it does have a 50 megapixel sensor. So the sensor in this guy is absolutely huge and is just perfect for getting a lot of compression and getting that nice blurry background. And since the sensor is so much bigger, it gives the image more of like a painterly, kind of like a medium to large format. Obviously it is a medium format camera, but it gives it that like kind of portrait, huge depth of field and a lot of detail in the image. So what does that mean? When you are changing sensor sizes, so for example, this is full frame. All right, so it's a little bit smaller, but like this is like the industry standard that most people are shooting on. The medium format is a little bit bigger. The difference between crop sensor to full frame to then medium format is the size of the sensor and the amount of information it's able to cover. Now, again, I'm not like a big techie guy, but basically what compression is if you're shooting on a crop censored camera, the background is going to seem a little farther away because you're actually cropping in on what would be the true like full frame equivalent. So when you go to a full frame equivalent, you're able to get the same depth of field in the millimeter of that lens, whether it's a 50 mil, 85, 135, however far you're going in and you're zooming in, you're able to keep that depth of field, but you're able to get more basically kind of around the edge. So if you look at like an image right here that you take, on full frame, it would be a little bit bigger. So the background is going to appear to be closer. It's going to appear to be more blurred out, more bokeh'd out. So when you get up to a medium format, you can shoot at apertures like f4, and on full frame, it's gonna look like, or sorry, in the equivalent on full frame of that is gonna look like it's a lower aperture just because of the compression. So you're getting a little bit more blur in the background. Again, I don't know all the technical specs on that. If you wanna know more, go and do your own research, but basically you're just getting more detail, you're getting a wider image without sacrificing the depth of field and the blur. So shooting on this has been really fun. The lens I have on here right now, I've actually been borrowing from my friend Nate. So this is the 32-64, which I think is close to, I don't know the exact full frame equivalent, but I'll put that on the screen right here. So this is basically what this lens is in full frame terms. I have come to think of it as like basically like a 24-50 kind of like that. So I have really been enjoying this. It's perfect for getting some wide shots. I like using this when people are getting ready, or using this to do like detail shots has been really nice. And then you can zoom it in to 64, and this is really good for portraits even, but if I want to get some really deep depth of field and some really blurry background portraits, I will switch over to the 110, which is kind of an equivalent of a 90 in full frame terms. So this is the GF from Fujifilm 110. This is a prime lens. This goes down to f2, so it's got your aperture ring right here. Sorry, there's a siren going on outside if you can hear that. But this is a really perfect lens for portraits, or we actually use this for a ceremony where the couple was really far away. So we wanted to get a little bit more reach because 70mm wasn't quite doing it on this camera, on the Sony 24-70 lens. We wanted to get a little bit more reach. Another lens I forgot to talk about is actually for the Sony. It is brand new. I just got this. I just picked it up. It is Sony 40mm compact lens. This is f2.5, and I never really shoot past 2.8. So having 2.5 is just an extra bonus for me. And I ended up getting this cool lens hood, this squared lens hood, which makes it kind of look like the lens that's on the Leica Q2 and Q3. With the lens hood that they have there, which is kind of why I got this lens, because it is so compact. I wanted to have, I mean, like in comparison to the Fuji 110, I wanted to have a smaller lens so that when I'm going around during cocktail hour, or maybe I am, I don't know, just wanting to be more discreet, or even doing anything else like street photography or something like that. If I don't want to be as noticeable in pointing like a big camera at someone like this is really, this is going to attract eyes, especially when there's a flash on top. But this is just so much more like compact and small, and it just makes it feel a little bit more like a film camera, a little bit smaller, kind of maybe like a smaller DSLR or a SLR like this, or even my rangefinder from Canon, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just really wanted to have something smaller so that I could be more discreet, and it's less intimidating, especially when you're photographing family and guests. Like, they don't really know you. So having a smaller lens like this has been really just perfect for me to be able to get into environments that maybe I otherwise wouldn't have been welcomed into in a way. So that is what is on that camera right now. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the digital cameras. Now I'm going to jump over to my film cameras. I'm going to keep it brief here, but just kind of show you what these cameras are and how I use them. Now, I don't bring all of this gear to a wedding day. I'll typically choose my 2 digital cameras here, and then I'll maybe have like 1 or 2 over here. And I'll kind of start with the smaller ones up in the front. These are my point and shoot cameras. So first of all, we've got the Ektar H35. It's a new camera that came out last year from Kodak. So this is not a vintage camera. This is brand new. This has a fixed, I forget the actual equivalent on here. It might be a 35. I think it has a 35mm lens on here, and it is half frame, so it's only shooting half of the negative at a time. So when you look through the viewfinder, you can actually see, maybe you can't. You can't really see, but basically instead of the image being landscape like this, it's portrait like that. So you're only shooting half of the negative at a time, which is really cool. So instead of this being a 36 exposure camera, This does 72 on a 36 exposure roll of film. So you're getting twice the mileage for the same price, and it has a built-in flash that you just twist this little guy right here. Now the flash is on, you can see it's charging when the red light comes on the back. It might need a new battery. But basically when that light lights up, then it's ready to go with the flash. Oh, it's on now. So you can see that there. So yeah, so this is really cool to use. It gives you, I'll put some images on the screen as I'm talking about it. But basically this gets you that really like lo-fi, that really grainy kind of plastic lens camera look. And it's super easy. You just turn it on, you point and you shoot. Now, I would recommend if you do pick up a camera like this, if you're shooting outside in bright daylight, it's going to work perfect. It's going to get your exposure. It's going to nail it. It is a fixed aperture and fixed shutter speed. So the only way that you're able to change the sensitivity and how much light is getting in is by changing the film itself. So I typically am shooting 400 or 800 speed film in here. Honestly, I would recommend shooting 800, especially indoors. And if you are indoors, I would always have the flash on. Always use the flash. Even if you're outside, sometimes the flash can be a vibe. So I would definitely advise using flash if you're using that camera. The other point and shoot camera I have is from Canon. This is the Canon SureShot 85 Zoom. So I really like using this. This has basically, it's the same thing as the Kodak H35, but this is older. This I think came out in like the 90s or maybe early 2000s. And this is reloadable, same as the H35. So you just put your film in the back. I actually have Portra 800 in it right now, so I'm not actually gonna take any photos. Another cool thing about this camera is that you can zoom in. Now the thing that I found with this is that the autofocus, when you do zoom in, how far does this go? 85 millimeters. So it starts at 38 and goes up to 85. And this is real zoom, this is not optical zoom. This is optical zoom, this is not digital zoom. So, because it's not a digital camera, so that was stupid to say. One thing that I noticed is that when you do get up to 85 millimeters, when you do zoom out like this, or zoom in like this, it can be really difficult to nail focus. I've noticed that it won't register focus as well. So I typically have really only ever used this at the 38 millimeter focal length. So I just leave it right there. And I'll put some images on the screen again as I'm talking about it. This also has a flash built in. This I have found is perfect. It's tried and true. It does change the exposure a little bit and reads the scene. So it's basically like an, I think it's either aperture priority or shutter priority, or one of the two. So it basically chooses all of the settings for you so that you do not have to actually worry about exposing the film properly. You just point and then you take the photo and then you're good to go. So I really like using this for dance floor, or I like giving this to like someone in the bridal party and like having them walk around and take photos with it. This is just a fun way to get some different images, some film images. Again, it's a little lower, quality, I guess, but even just saying that, this lens in here is super sharp. It's sometimes sharper than some of my other film cameras. So this is like just, I think, a really perfect camera to use for just some of more of those like quicker moments that you don't want to have to worry about nailing your exposure, but you can just take this camera out, snap a photo, and then it's good to go. Plus, people are like way more excited to be photographed on film than they are to be photographed on a digital camera. Why? I don't know, but I think since it's so trendy right now, this just allows me to take photos that I otherwise wouldn't be able to get because people just get more excited and they like pose and they grab their friends. And so having that camera is a lot of fun. The next camera I'm going to talk about is my Canon N60, and then I have a 50mm f1.8 on here. So this is the film camera I use when I am doing portraits. I just picked this up last winter, and I actually just got this lens this summer. And the reason that I like using this is because, yes, it is a film camera, but it also has autofocus and auto exposure. So if I don't want to have to worry about dialing in all of the settings, especially on a film camera, since you can't see it live on the back, you sometimes have like a, actually right here, it shows you your exposure. So if you're under or overexposed, I just dial in the settings. I set it to be overexposed by 1/3 of a stop, and then I just let it rock and roll on its own. I turn it to, it has this nice dial here of different auto settings. I turn it to the little portrait icon, and basically what this does is it locks in the aperture as low as it can possibly be, and then auto adjusts the shutter speed. Now, if we need to, cut a little bit more light out, it will stop up the aperture and bring it up to, like 2.8, 3.5, 5.6, whatever it is. But just having that auto setting right there, having it at f2 for most of the time has been really, really nice. I'll put some images that I've taken on this guy up on the screen right now. And this by far gets me the sharpest images. It's basically like shooting on my digital camera because of the glass that's on this camera. It's really sharp and nails focus much easier than on my manual film cameras, which I'll talk about in a second. So this one, really nice to pick up, 35mm, auto exposure, auto focus, and a 50mm f1.8 lens. This rocks. The other camera that I like to use a lot, and this is actually more of what I use in my personal life. I've used it at some weddings. This year, it's my Canon QL G3 1.7 rangefinder. So a rangefinder is different than a SLR. You're not actually seeing through the lens like you are on all of these other cameras. This here basically has this patch up here in the corner that is how you focus. So you look through like this, and then you use this little dial on the side to dial in and basically line up your focus. There's like a ghost image right in the middle of the patch here, and you want to line that up with your image that you can see through the rangefinder, so that's how you know what's in focus. Now, it takes a little bit of time to learn how to use a rangefinder camera, so I would recommend maybe not starting with one of these, but if you've already shot film before, or maybe you've shot manual focus before, this could be a really fun camera for you to pick up. Now, a couple accessories that I have on here include the lens hood. So this lens hood comes off. It's actually not a part of the camera itself. And then this on top is an external light meter. So this just goes right onto the hot shoe and basically allows me to dial in an exposure and know what the readings are of the scene. So this just points at the subject, tells me what the settings should be. Because the internal light meter in the camera is broken, so normally it would be right through the viewfinder. You would see, it'll tell you like what shutter or aperture it should be at. But since it's broken, it's an old camera, I think this is from like 1972, I got this external one and just put it on the top so that it's easier for me to know exactly what the exposure of the scene should be. On this camera, I also have the Ocean Color leather strap from Clever Supply Co. This is with the Peak Design anchor integration. So again, super easy for me to be able to just snap this on and be able to use all of these anchors and straps on all my different cameras. A little bit more about the lens on this camera. It does stop down to 1.7. So you can see that on here, which is why it has 17 in the name. So I really like using this for portraits, but it's also really good to just kind of use as like a street photography camera when you're walking around maybe a reception or cocktail hour. Just like grabbing quick photos is really cool. And plus I have a flash, a small flash. I don't actually have it on me right now, but I have a flash that I put on top. I'll show some photos that I took at a rehearsal dinner with that, that I really, really liked how those turned out. Maybe that'll be a separate video, is like film photography and flash. That could be a cool thing to cover. But anyway, that's one of my favorite cameras. It is the Canon G3 QL 1.7. So definitely check that out. I think they're a little harder to come by, but I think you can pick them up online for like $300, something like that. The other camera that I use is the Fujifilm Instax Wide. I know that like you've probably seen the just Instax cameras at a lot of weddings this year, super, super popular. This one is basically just like a beefed up version of that. So it's got a better lens on it. It shoots wide. So you can see on the back here, the film is actually much, much larger than the small Instax film packages or cartridges that you put in there. I'll open up the back so you can kind of see, like there's a lot of space in there. So the film negatives are a lot bigger. I really like using this camera as like a surprise for my clients. I never really put into the package that this is going to be something that I'm doing, taking instant photos from throughout the day. But I really like to do that just on like the top 10 biggest moments of the day. So typically I'll take an instant photo, basically like a Polaroid. I'll take an instant photo during getting ready of both parties, bride and groom, whoever. And then I will take some during first look. I'll take some during the ceremony, during portraits, and then during the dance floor, I'll typically finish up. And I really like taking one big group shot. So after we've been out on the dance floor for a while, I'll gather everybody up and I'll just be like, all right, everybody, big group shot. We got one photo left. And everyone's like, whoa. And then I'm like, I'm like 3, 2, 1, and then take the photo. And so then at dinner or at the end of the night, I take all of the instant photos I've taken from throughout the day. I drop them down on the couple's table. I'll put some photos of me doing that. I drop them down on their table during dinner or at the end of the night before I take off and just give them a little surprise. I also kind of say something silly like, I know I said I was going to get you 10 to 15 preview images on Monday, but I just couldn't wait. So I took some of these instant photos from throughout the day. Here you go. And it's just so fun to see them be able to relive their day live in that moment on the same day by viewing all of those photos that we took from throughout the day. So that's really fun. Now we're going to dive into some of the extra gear that I have here on the table. I'm going to start with my flash. This is nothing super crazy. This is just from Newer. It's a through TTL lens or TTL flash, which means through the lens. So you can set it to just match your settings on your camera and auto expose the scene. I do a mix of bounce flash, so it bouncing off of the ceiling. I also have got this diffusion kind of cup on it, or cap. I also do direct flash. And I'll zoom in the flash. I'll show you some photos of this too. You can zoom the flash in, so it's only just lighting up like the middle of the image. And it gives this really cool effect where it's kind of like vignetted around the outside, but then the center, whatever is in the center that the flash hits, is frozen. So that is really fun. You can get a lot of light trails and a lot of trippy looks when you are using flash in a few different ways. Maybe, again, that'll be another video that I make in the future. I also have a JBL speaker that I like to clip onto my bag. There's a little hook over on the side of the bag right here that I will just clip this guy onto. And then when I'm wearing this, when we're doing family photos or even some portraits at the end of the night, I'll just play some different jams that I have made on a playlist so that it's more fun and not as boring. Especially during family photos, it's really nice to be able to let people have fun during family photos, because otherwise it can be really boring. But I like to have as much fun with family photos as possible, because I believe that those are some of the most important photos that you take on a wedding day, because those are the photos that are going to last a lifetime. Those are the photos that are going to be how people remember one another. Those are going to be the photos that are on the poster boards at people's funerals. So these photos are incredibly important, even though in the moment they're really boring to take. So I like to play some fun, jams on here. I have a lot of old school, like, Earth, Wind, and Fire, September, stuff like that on there, which is just a lot of fun. The other thing I do during family photos is I take my phone and I put this little Ulanzi phone mount on my camera. So I'll show you how I do that right here. Basically, it just unscrews to loosen it, and then you put it onto the hot shoe of your camera, and then I just flip it up like this, and then you can put your phone in it. So I have the list of all of the family photos that I want to take right here on my screen. So then when I'm taking photos, I can just reference down and look at this and just be like, okay, now I need bride and groom and mom and dad, and I'll read everyone's names off, and it's just super easy to do this. Take the photo when everyone's in the shot, and then look down at the phone again and be like, okay, now I need so-and-so and so-and-so. And it's just so easy to be able to do this rather than having like my phone in my pocket or loose somewhere, have a list. This can make it super, super easy just to be able to have the family photo list right in front of you. So that's my setup for family photos. And I think, one of the last things I want to talk about is my bag. So how do I carry all of this gear? So I do have the Peak Design anchors and on this leather camera strap here. So I just throw that up around my neck. I also can put a different camera on here. Like sometimes I'll put the huge instant photo camera on there, or maybe I'll put like this camera on there if I want to. But otherwise what I'll do is like throughout the day, I'll just kind of like shift around these cameras from inside my bag to on the hooks of my camera harness. So this camera harness is from Clever Supply Co. Like I said, Todd makes these down in Kansas, and it's just super, super sleek. Like you're gonna get compliments when you're wearing this, and it helps me be able to be hands-free throughout the day. So I just take the cameras that I'm using, I put them on, and then just drop them down at my side. So I can then interact with the couple. I think that it's really important to talk to your couple without a camera being in front of your face. Just the ability to have eye-to-eye contact and coach them and make them feel comfortable and have a relationship and not make it feel like a photo shoot, but make it feel like you're just hanging out and having fun. This sort of relationship of being able to talk to someone with your hands, or to be able to like help, you know, position the veil or carry something. Like, I love having a camera harness. I know not everyone likes to have multiple cameras on them. It can get a little tough to get used to, you know, switching between the two. So I've actually, what I mean is it can be tough when you have two cameras to be able to be shooting in one scene with certain settings, drop it down, pick up the other camera and shoot in the same scene. So what I've actually been doing is for most of the day, unless I need to, switch to manual. I've been shooting in aperture priority for most of the time. So right over here, I do have it on manual right now, but I just switch it over to aperture priority, and then it basically chooses the best shutter speed and ISO for the scene, but allows me to keep my aperture where I want it, whether that's at, you know, 2.5, 2.8, 4, 5.6, whatever it is. So aperture priority, underrated. I think a lot of us glorify shooting in manual settings the entire time, but utilizing aperture priority has allowed me, as I've been experimenting with it a little bit more, it allows me to get certain photos that maybe I otherwise wouldn't have been able to if they're happening really quick. So like cocktail hour, changing rooms, going between different lighting scenarios. Like aperture priority has been really, really fun to add to my toolkit this year. And it's kind of the opposite of what a lot of people tell you, that like pro photographers need to shoot in manual the entire time. I think we need to shoot in manual when it calls for it. Like, so I don't think that aperture priority is just what you should be shooting in all the time and it should replace, you know, learning manual settings. I think that you should know your manual settings. But if you do shoot in aperture priority, I think that it's just a lot of fun and you can get a lot of really cool images faster and be able to stay in the moment with people instead of continuously like fiddling with your settings or being like, 1 second, you know, I got to change this. Just having it set and ready to go has been really, really nice and easy for me. So the other thing that I'll do is I have this Clever Supply bag here as well. So this is just like the little side bag that I like to throw over my shoulder. And this keeps basically any extra gear that I want to just have on me throughout the day right here at my side. So typically I'll pack this guy up with my flash. So the flash will just go right in there. I typically have some extra batteries right here in the top. I like this little detail where it says enjoy the carry. That's nice. And then you can put some batteries up here. I typically keep my microphone that I'm actually using right now there. And I'll keep the mount in here for my phone. I have a little rocket blower to clean my lens. Extra SD cards I keep in here as well in this little case. I have a lens cloth in here as well. And then you can keep another lens in here too. So I'll kind of show you the inside. So then I just will take another lens and just pop it right down in there so I can carry that around with me. So that is how I am carrying my gear on a wedding day. It's a lot, but it's easy so that I can go from area to area, location to location, room to room without having to leave stuff everywhere. So just simply for like security's sake, it's really nice to be able to have all of my stuff on me at a time. Or I can put all my other stuff in my bigger camera bag and just leave that somewhere sitting. So yeah, anyway, that is all of my camera gear that I use to shoot weddings. I know that was a lot of information, so feel free to go back and watch this a couple times if you want. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.